You've asked me to continue to take a look at this case involving Matthew Hoover, involving the auto key card, to see if there's anything else that I've noticed that stands out as funny. Well, I actually have a big picture concern about something involving the ATF here that's perplexing to me. I want to talk about it when we get back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and author of the brand new book, Disarmed, What the Ukraine War Teaches Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. We'll talk about that book a lot more soon. Okay folks, here's the story. I've been looking at this Matthew Hoover case and the auto key card issue and his conviction. And what's odd to me, and this is a little bit more of a high-level point, it's not like a trial strategy point or a legal argument, it's more of what I call prosecutorial discretion or just professional judgment. Let me tell you what I mean by that. You know, I've run law firms, I've worked with some major companies my whole career. So I have a pretty good sense about how to exercise judgment, which of course means to judge. Sometimes you can do something, but you should choose not to do so. Sometimes you shouldn't do something, but you still do it. You know, a lot of this involves judgment. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this in the context of the Matthew Hoover case, in conjunction with what the ATF and the Department of Justice did here, is that I'm a little perplexed as someone who's done high-level law as to why they felt the need to target Mr. Irwin here and Mr. Hoover. Now, I want to let you know something. This is something that not a lot of people know about outside of kind of elite levels of law, which is that the United States Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, and all the U.S. Attorney's offices across the country, they have two divisions, at least two divisions. They have what's known as the criminal division, which is responsible for prosecuting people criminally to put them in prison, for example. But they also have, and this is what a lot of people don't know, but it's true, they also have a civil division that brings civil cases for civil remedies and civil punishments, where it doesn't involve putting people in prison or giving them a criminal record. It allows them to do things civilly with civil remedies. Now, the reason why I bring this up is, as if I were looking at this case involving Matthew Hoover and this auto key card situation, as a longtime attorney, let me tell you what it feels like to me. It has all the feelings of being a civil matter, a civil dispute, and not a criminal case. And I'll tell you why I think that. First of all, I'm not seeing any victims here. I don't see anybody getting hurt, anybody getting killed, anyone getting shot, right? I don't see any victims. I also don't see a situation where people have come out of the woodwork, at least as far as I can tell from the reports that I've read and what I can glean from the record. Now, again, I don't have all the trial. I haven't read the trial transcript. There may be stuff out there that I'm just not privy to. That is certainly possible. And I'm certainly talking on incomplete data, and things that I'm not aware of might change my opinion. But what stands out to me is this really has the look and the feel of a civil case because there are no apparent victims. No one's been hurt. No one's been shot. Based on the record, it doesn't appear as any person outside of the context of government in government employment actually was able to or used these auto key cards to convert a semi-automatic rifle into a fully automatic rifle, thus converting a semi-automatic into a machine gun or anything like that. Beyond that, I should note, it also seems to me that at least Mr. Hoover appeared to be a gadfly toward the ATF, at least from my quick review of what I've seen his videos. I haven't seen a lot of his videos, so I could be wrong, but it does seem like he's the kind of guy, or I should say his videos suggest, he's kind of attacking the ATF and making comments about the ATF that might be viewed as disparaging, and I could see the ATF or the Department of Justice not being happy about that. But nevertheless, if that were the case, as a government exercising prosecutorial discretion, in some ways, if someone is a gadfly toward the government, you almost want to be extra careful about doing anything toward that person because you don't want to come across as petty. You want to maintain credibility and seriousness. And if you target someone that's kind of a gadfly towards you, to me, it risks looking a little petty and unprofessional, which I don't think you ever want as an attorney, as a professional, or certainly anybody that works in a prosecutor's office. Now, what I'm about to say here is not directed toward the line prosecutors that actually tried the case. It's more about why did these offices decide to go after Mr. Hoover and bring this criminal case? Because there were other options. And the reason why I bring up this concept of the civil division of the U.S. Attorney's Office is it seems like this is the sort of thing that the civil division should have dealt with and not the criminal division. Because it seems to me, and maybe this occurred and I'm just not aware of it, but it seems to me that if I was running the Department of Justice or I were in charge of ATF or the U.S. Attorney's Office in Jacksonville, Florida that tried this case, I might have been inclined to say, look, why don't we write them a cease and desist letter, tell them to stop selling it? Maybe I would have raided their business, taken the auto key cards and said, look, we're not going to give these back to you. You need to stop using these. Maybe I would have brought a forfeiture action saying we're going to take the auto key cards and not give them back to you, and you need to promise that you're not going to do this, or we're going to indict you. Maybe I would have had a meeting with them. Maybe, again, you would have used the civil division of the U.S. Attorney's Office to sue them, to enjoin them from, possessing these and or distributing these or talking about these, something like this. But again, it just seemed to me that the proper course here was really civil in nature and not criminal for the reasons I've just articulated. And again, I don't know why the discretion by the U.S. Attorney's Office was done in this way. Now, I should note that historically, one of the problems that the ATF has encountered or done is the question has always been raised, what does the ATF do criminally different than what the FBI does? Because keep in mind, the ATF has really at least two mandates. On the one hand, they're criminal investigators. If someone commits a gun-related crime or arson or something like that, well, guess what? They can help prosecute them criminally. But they also have civil authority, which is why they go to FFLs and help make sure that the gun industry complies with regulations and whatnot. So there's like a civil aspect of what the ATF does in addition to the criminal. So what I've seen historically, and maybe people disagree with this, it seems like one of the problems the ATF has had historically is they have tried to stand out to justify their criminal existence, their existence in the context of the criminal law, to show that they are somehow different and distinct and just as important as, let's say, the FBI. And maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but let me tell you, it's my impression. The reason why I say this is if you look at the sort of debacles that occurred down in Waco, Texas, right? The Ruby Ridge issue, the Fast and Furious issue in the Southwest. Well, why did the ATF find themselves in these kind of predicaments, in these kind of problems? And it seems to me one of the possible motives or reasons why this all occurred is because they were trying to stand out in some way to distinguish their criminal-related work from like the criminal-related work of the FBI, and that kind of got the ATF by virtue of being forcing the issue, if you will, to get in some hot water that they otherwise could have avoided, which really comes back to my point about the Hoover case here, is I don't quite understand why they wouldn't have gone the civil route to try to shut this down and stop this if they really felt the need, especially since it seems to be a line call, right? A close line call between whether or not these auto key cards are really combinations of parts equaling, under this federal law, a machine gun, or maybe they're not. So it seemed to me where you have a line call as to whether or not it's criminal or not, I would go the civil route to get clarification before I would, indict someone and try to put them in prison for decades, especially, again, where there doesn't appear to be any victims or anybody in the real world actually converted any of these semi-autos to machine guns. So to summarize, I, at a very high level, having looked at this Hoover case, am perplexed that they went the criminal route to prosecute these two individuals as opposed to looking for a civil solution of some sort. But they went the criminal route, and it is what it is. Again, I don't know what motivated them here. I'm going to try to continue to look at this to see if I get some better answers. But right now, I'm not entirely satisfied from the point of view of the government's position as to why they felt the need to go DEFCON 1 and use the nuclear option on these two individuals given the context. But again, I'll keep my eyes out, keep looking around, and maybe my questions will be answered in a way differently from what I've just articulated on this video. Okay, folks, if you haven't subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner, please do so. And by the way, feel free to join me on Twitter at 4boxes Diner. And of course, check out my new book, which we're going to talk more about, the book called Disarmed, which talks about how the Ukraine teaches us lessons about the importance of the right to keep and bear arms here in America and beyond. We'll see you next time soon here at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.